All right, good morning. We will call the May 11th City of Findlay City Planning Commission meeting to order. Jacob, roll call.
Mayor Murin,
Here.
Mr. Martin,
Here.
Mr. DeArmond,
Here.
and Ms. Schroeder.
Here. Mr. Klinger had informed us he would not be present today. If anyone speaking for or against an item could please stand, raise your right hand to be sworn in.
Okay. Do you affirm that all the testimony and evidence you are about to give in a case before this commission this day will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and will conform to the facts of the case and the rules of this commission? This you affirm under the pains and penalties of perjury. Please say I do.
You may be seated. Approval of prior meeting minutes. We have the April 13th City Planning Commission meeting minutes. Any discussion?
No comments. I move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Hearing no discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, nay. Minutes are approved. All right, moving on to new business. Item number 1, application for conditional use CU-06-2023 filed by Kyle Smith to establish a home business at 506 Monroe Avenue for a mobile car detailing business. CPC staff comments.
This request is located on the north side of Monroe Avenue between Bolton Street and Maury Avenue. It is zoned R3 small lot residential. The neighborhood is mostly zoned R3 small lot residential, but there is a MH mobile home park to the southeast near the intersection with Maury Avenue. It is not located within a 100-year floodplain, and the City of Findlay Land Use Plan designates the area as small lot residential. The site is a single-family home which the Smiths have lived at since 2019. The applicant, Kyle Smith, has applied to use his home address as his business address. The business is a mobile car detailing business, which typically goes to the client's location to do the work. His work involves washing, vacuuming, and detailing cars. Sometimes Mr. Smith does use his own driveway to perform the work. Staff would add that a conditional use permit is revocable, and if there are any issues in the future, they can be revoked. So, staff recommendation, CPC staff recommends approval of the application for conditional use CU-06-2023 filed by Kyle Smith to establish a home business at 506 Monroe Avenue for a mobile car detailing business.
Engineering,
No comment.
fire prevention.
No comment.
So the recommendation before the commission is staff recommends approval of the application for conditional use CU-06-2023. I believe the applicant is here. If you could come forward, tell us a little bit about your request.
Yeah, is that better? Hi, I'm Kyle Smith. I started K&S Mobile Detail just over a year ago, and most of the time I am out at clients' houses. I do Blanchard Valley vans, work for AgPro. Sometimes I do have to bring customer vehicles to my house. Most of the time it's because I either cannot physically park my trailer at their residence, or they don't have any other means for me to come to them. So normally that's when I have vehicles at my house. Never more than one at a time. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Thank you. So we did have some concerns that we received from neighbors regarding, primarily my concern was, the waste or contamination.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about kind of how you are in compliance with any regulations related to chemicals utilization?
I use everything that I use is biodegradable. I don't think it's any different than anybody washing their own vehicle at their house. I don't use any harsh chemicals.
Okay, so not using any like oils or contaminants that would have to be separately contained?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
I think the worst thing that I might use is a wheel cleaner, but it's just a foaming wheel cleaner, and I always make sure that I have that sprayed back afterwards so it doesn't affect anything.
Okay.
And how long have you been doing this at this location?
Just since the 18th of January last year.
So that would be, so this is,
Just over a year.
okay.
Yes,
Thank-
sir.
Thank you. For not making me think too hard. I appreciate it.
So this letter is, well,
I think she's here.
I haven't had a chance to read this, but
So I believe one of the authors of the letter is here. I don't know if you would like to speak.
I just have a few more questions
Yeah.
for the applicant, then we can, what volume of business do you do in an average week or so?
A lot, but not all of it's at my residence. Maybe 2 to 3 a week at my residence, but everything else I go.
When you have a car at your residence, how does that work? Do you ever have more than one car at your residence?
The only time I've ever had more than one car at my residence wasn't customer vehicles. It's when I have family events and
Sure.
we don't have anywhere to park. But no, I never have. I don't just like let a week's worth of work pile up in my yard until I can get to it. It's always same day drop off, same day pickup.
Okay.
What's the duration? Like, how long does it typically take you? I know cars obviously are
It
different
dep-
sizes, and
Yeah, yes, sir. And it depends on the condition of the vehicle too. I would say somewhere between 4 to 6 hours a vehicle.
this is all conducted during business. Like,
I don't start anything until 9:30 in the morning, just out of respect of making any sort of noise.
and then you're done by the end of.
Oh, absolutely, yes, sir.
Okay.
Any other questions? Ms. Holman, did you want to come forward and? Hey, Penny.
Thank you for hearing me today. Good morning. My name is Penny Holman, and another concerned neighbor of mine, Robin Lynch, was unable to come today. But I've lived at the resident where I'm at, 4 houses away, for 28 years. And Robin has lived in her residence 2 houses away for 32 years. We have a vested interest in our neighborhood. We've seen it go up and down, and right now it's going up, which makes us very happy. Young families are moving in, improving their residences, and it is a residential neighborhood. Now I can just read from this. I wanted to, my neighbor Robin Lynch and I want you to know that we oppose the conditional use filed by Kyle Smith for his mobile car business detailing business. Kyle Smith established K&S Mobile Detail LLC on January 18th of 2022. Mr. Smith has been providing his services at his home located at 506 Monroe Avenue, Findlay, Ohio, without the proper permit since 2022. Our neighborhood is comprised of small ranch homes with families consisting of single people, widows, married couples with children. He has only a single car driveway. There's not enough room for parking for his customers, and this business will increase traffic and parking in his front yard. Safety for children is a big concern for us. What happens if a vehicle backs out of his yard, which that's where they park, and a child is walking or riding their bicycle and a tragedy occurs when a child is hit? The following are reasons why we oppose the change from residential to commercial. The Clean Water Act of 1972 states that you must have water catches such as filter grates that flow into a contained area. Mr. Smith does not have filter grates located on his driveway. You must have a permit to dispose of wastewater. It is illegal for wastewater to be discharged into sewer grates. Federal and state EPA groups pollutants into 3 categories. Non-conventional are chlorine, nitrogen, phosphorus, and benzene. Conventional are grease and oil, and toxin are metals and human-made organics. Mr. Smith is dumping his wastewater into the ground. Federal and state OSHA rules have strict rules where electricity and water are in the same area. K&S Mobile Detailing is not adhering to OSHA safety rules. When using the chemicals to clean the motors, wheel wells, outside and inside of the vehicles, does he have safety data sheets on file to give to his customers? We are located in the Dalzell Watershed District, and all our residents are assessed a fee for flooding. Since his wastewater is dumped into his lawn, what happens when floodwaters occur? Do the pollutants rise to the surface? Yes. Does K&S Mobile Detail LLC have a vendor's license? Now, we are not opposed to K&S Mobile Detail LLC. We are just not, we just don't want him conducting business in a residential area. We believe that if you grant an exception to K&S, what if another resident wants to start a small business on their property? Do you grant another exception because you've created a slippery slope for a residential neighborhood? We do not want to have another Tiffin Avenue, a few houses left over between commercial buildings. Thank you for taking our concerns into consideration. Any questions?
I do, and I don't know if this is for you. Since he's established his business in January 2022, have we had any incidents occur?
Well, the incidents that occur is I have pictures that he's putting his wastewater into the ground. There's no filter system, and state and federal laws require that. And sometimes from what I've read, sometimes the fines for this are very high. I mean, it's state and federal law that we're talking about. I have pictures here that show he does park in his lawn. It's not a big, he only has a single car driveway. It's not a big place. Here is a picture of, the car's pretty, it's nice and clean. But the picture part of the picture I'm concerned about is he's just stuck up a tent canopy. He has all his equipment out here. He has electrical, it looks like it's running through a hole in the door. Not sure about that. He can address that if that's true. And then you see all the wastewater just sitting on his driveway. Now I'd like to know he's rinsing that into the yard, and that's totally illegal. Here's a copy of what a well looks like, his wheel well, and all the stuff that's coming off. We're not concerned that he's using chemicals and things like that are okay for business. What we're concerned about is the state and federal laws do not allow him to do that without a catch and a pit area. I work at a company that does, one of our departments is detailing. We have huge pits, and we have huge, great systems. They are pulled out by a company and sucked out on a, not daily, but on a regular basis. And we follow all the state and business laws, state and federal. This is a small neighborhood. I just, I'm concerned about all the children that live in the neighborhood. They ride their bikes, they ride their scooters, they're walking, and they park in the lawn.
Could you clarify? Are you talking about they park here?
No, they're parking in the lawn, yes.
Okay.
Not the boulevard.
Gotcha. And just a point of clarification. There's no chance that this is going to turn into a Tiffin Avenue. A conditional use home occupation, there's no signage allowed. There's, whether they vote yes or no on it. The end result, this isn't giving him commercial zoning. It's still a residential zone, home occupation applications.
Okay.
So you can rest assured that home occupations are they require that the property maintain its residential character in all ways, no signage, no additional employees, things like that. So I just wanted to
That's
add.
good. I'm glad to hear that. I'm still concerned about the federal and state EPA and OSHA laws that state you can't do this.
Can I?
Everybody wants to
You,
know.
you first, Mayor, you first.
Always, always the mayor first.
So I guess this is a question for the applicant because in the materials that I've seen related to the business, it states that you're insured, and obviously to be insured, you would have to comply with appropriate state and federal laws. So, Mr. Sadowski, are you representing the client? Could you, if you could come forward and introduce yourself, please?
My name is Pat Sadowski. I'm counsel for K&S Mobile Detail. Just wanted to address some of the concerns. First of all, OSHA, there's no employees.
Agreed.
There's no contractors.
No issue.
This is truly in accordance with the ordinance, a family business. The only two people that work in the business are Kyle and his wife. He cleans the car, she runs the books. That's it. So OSHA is not a concern. Secondly, I'd posit the Clean Water Act is not a concern because that is well beyond the scope of what we're dealing with here. Kyle has already testified that the applicants, the solvents, the cleaning supplies he used are biodegradable and no different than you would get at Meijer or Menards or AutoZone. He has a 2-year-old daughter himself, so he understands the issue of safety. The picture of the truck was his father-in-law's. Kyle has already said that the only time there are cars on his lawn is when he has family functions, and there's nowhere else to park. So I had written down a couple other things. Oh, there is, I'm just going to walk up, or do I have to speak into the microphone?
Loud, it's recorded.
Pointer?
Okay. Oh, great. There is a storm sewer right here. And the concern about water runoff in the yard, the water goes down his driveway and makes a 90-degree turn to the storm sewer. Water does not go across his own yard, let alone his neighbor's yard, who's sitting right here and in support of this, let alone the neighbors that are 4 houses to the east. So the water goes down his driveway and into the storm sewer. It does not go into anyone's yards. If there's anything, it's incidental. So just want to address those concerns and then answer any other questions that the
So
board
Pat,
may have.
the only thing that has any traction of what's been discussed in my mind is this Clean Water Act thing. So now, if you're a resident and you have storm or, rinse water, whatever, going into this, into the storm sewer, it's
Right.
probably okay. But now we're talking about, now it's a commercial business.
Mm-hmm.
So does now it's, as a commercial business, does that impact the Clean Water Act? I mean,
I will double check with you.
that's the only thing. I'm okay with everything else. I mean, I think we can put conditions on this, the parking and the one at a time and hours of operation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay, but it's really, it just comes down to, can a commercial business dump into a storm sewer?
Well, I will verify and get back to you.
Okay, so we're gonna table this then?
If that's the board's decision. I'm not going to sit
Or-
here.
I guess from my standpoint, like,
And-
that would be a permit that he would have to obtain from a separate entity, and that area would not be able to accommodate the requirements of the EPA. So I guess from my standpoint, we can voice our concern that it is validated, just like we do many other times, right? The condition on the conditional use is that we receive a comment from the attorney or from EPA that there's not a concern, and as long as there's not a concern,
Okay.
then it would be addressed. Because and I know Clean Water Act, when you're looking at state, federal, the specifics
Right.
of any products that are being used, I think the main difference, I know Penny mentioned kind of her work establishment, they're probably also doing oil changes and things of that nature.
That's in a service capacity. This is detailing. And the water, they may be using.
If you could come up to the microphone.
In rebuttal, they may be using good, cleaning solutions, but the runoff that comes off of a engine and wheel wells, they all contain pollutants. And this Clean Act, Water Act of 1972, does not allow you to let runoff go into the sewer system. It is illegal. You
Even
have
from a
to have
resident?
such.
I'm not sure about that. Even from a resident?
They state that they don't like it, but they realize that residents are going to wash their cars.
Okay.
But they prefer.
Well, we need to
you
understand
go
what the
to
law
a
says here. I mean,
car wash, but we're not talking about a resident, we're talking about a business.
I understand that now, yes.
Engineer Kelb?
Yeah, I was going to say, if this was a commercial or industrial site where it has those uses where they have the oils and stuff, they have oil and water separators that has to go into our sanitary. There are standards. Where I'm kind of getting torn between of what I don't know what the full legality of it is, because this is a residential site on this. If we have a homeowner that washes their car and say it's just a strictly residential and they wash their car every day, twice a day, we can't tell them, hey, you got to connect to the sanitary. That's just kind of that. So I think having the legality of behind what the EPA views as this type of residential would be beneficial, because if this was a strictly industrial or commercial site, yes, they got to have oil water separators and they got to go into the sanitary.
Right.
But this is kind of a different zone where they are a commercial business, but they're at a residential site.
Right.
Yes.
So, the volume is a lot different in those as well, and the different types of work. So having that legal advice behind would probably be beneficial, because if not, we go around and tell all residents that you can't wash your cars more than once
Yeah.
a day, or once a week or something like that. So
Well, like you said, residents in a residential area, he is doing his commercial business in a residential area. And he doesn't have anything going into the sewer system. He doesn't have grates, he doesn't have a pit, and it's illegal to put it into a sewer system without a proper permit. I've researched this diligently and deeply. And he just needs to follow the laws of a commercial business, which is what he is.
I appreciate that, and I agree with what Engineer Kelb said, but the point is the infrequency of what he does there versus at other locations is probably the equivalent of what I was going to make the same point. A neighborhood, somebody that obsesses about the clean car and the detailing, this can happen routinely, more frequently than it is what the owner is actually saying it actually happens there. I mean, this happens throughout the community. I mean, he's a mobile business. So the infrequency, how it happens here, I think is the point.
And, if you go to, if you go to any city, there are mobile detailing companies. They're all over Columbus, Cincinnati, Dayton, maybe Findlay. There might be others in, so obviously, so the fact that they exist everywhere tends to make me believe that it's not as much of an issue, but it's probably worth a call to the EPA in Bowling Green to find out what the legality is. Whether that's part of our decision, that could be a condition upon receiving EPA approval.
Okay.
Yeah, I will add the condition of the appropriate legal opinion slash statement from the EPA be provided. I would just remind the applicant, if we start having significant issues with multiple cars being there, sidewalks being blocked, cars consistently being parked on, the grassy area, anything like that, or oils or different things like that being spilled. Again, this is a conditional use. So if you start being intrusive into the neighborhood, the permit can be revoked. Obviously, we want to maintain the integrity of the area. We also want you to be able to, have a successful business and do that. So as I frequently tell people, don't make me regret this. But I would motion to approve the conditional use with the additional condition of the appropriate legal opinion slash statement from the EPA be received.
I would like to add conditions. Can I do that?
Can we get a second, and then we can
All right,
discuss and amend?
I'll second.
All right, so did you have other
I was
discussion?
going to suggest limited to one car at a time, 9:30 to 5 days a week, no street parking, in the legal opinion. So, limited to one car at a time. Operating hours are 9:30 to 5 days a week, no street parking. And then get the legal opinion from EPA.
Okay. Would you 6 or 5?
I'm sorry, what?
5 is okay.
Oh, 100%.
Okay. I didn't know
Okay.
if maybe 6, but 5 seems to.
Every good lawyer would ask his client.
So just to clarify, does that exclude like Saturday and Sunday?
That's what my intent. Yeah, weekdays. Yes, excluding Saturday. Is that okay? Do you, Saturday and Sunday?
My
or-
wife works Saturday and Sunday. She's a nurse, so I have to watch my daughter all weekend anyway, so we don't.
Okay. So Monday through Friday.
Okay.
Okay.
Our zoning administrator would like to chime in.
No, I'm just kidding. What, Eric?
So just so everybody understands the background of this, this was something that has been established for a year that we didn't know about. And the only reason why we figured out that it was being ran from the home was because a fence was getting laid out. So there has been no complaints to the city besides me going out there and saying, oh, you have a mobile detailing thing going on here. What are you doing? And I reached out to Kyle, and Kyle has been a very pleasant citizen to work with, and he's been doing everything we ask. So I don't think there's going to be a concern about calls. I understand there's a concern about the environmental aspect of things, but it's been a year and there's been no complaints yet. So
Okay, so Dan made I heard Dan make a motion to amend my motion, and I'll second your amendment to my motion.
All right.
Is there any other discussion? So the recommendation at this point in time or the statement from the committee would be approval of the conditional use CU-06-2023 filed by Kyle Smith to establish a home business at 506 Monroe Avenue for a mobile car detailing business with the conditions of the appropriate legal opinion / statement from the EPA be received, that it be one car at a time between the weekday hours of 9:30 and 5 p.m. for operations.
And no street parking.
No street parking. Any other discussion? Matt, did you
Did
have
we
something?
want some sort of note, be it an email from the EPA that says, due to the size of the business, no permit is required or something like
Yep,
that?
so that's addressed in the legal opinion / statement
Oh,
from the EPA.
alright.
So when are you put the condition of no on-street parking? Are you talking about vehicles that aren't owned by the owner,
That's a good
or
question. I was just thinking about maybe we need to define that. So
because
that's-
there's absolutely no parking down through there's cars on the boulevard and the green space at all times, all the way up and down that neighborhood. So
So perhaps just no parking of the mobile system in the street? Or you're saying there's no street parking along the whole area anyways? So that is duplicative.
So we don't allow parking in the front yard anyways. So where they're talking about is in the boulevard. So there's stuff that's always parked down through that neighborhood already. So I don't know. I know he keeps his trailer whenever they're at home at night parked out that way. But I don't know. I don't know if you're talking about him after he gets done with the detailing, parking somebody else's vehicle.
I guess I just didn't want to see increased parking as a result of the business. So
I drive that quite often, and there's really during the working hours, I may see one car in that parking lot, but I don't know if that's typical or not. I go past that area probably 2-3 times a week on Monroe, Madison.
So we're basically talking customer parking. That's what the concern is.
customer vehicle parking. Is
Which
that-
really, that's
is
kind
that-
of addressed by the one car at a time,
Yeah.
right? Because you just don't want queuing
Yeah,
of
right.
client
We don't-
cars.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
So what are we saying?
So no client on street parking.
Okay, all right. No client on street parking. Okay. That work, Eric? All right.
Okay. Any other discussion? Sir?
Just want to reiterate, conditional uses, if we receive a lot of complaints, the city can claw back the conditional use and take it back. So, and then just, no, it's against city rules to park non-paved surface in the front yard. So,
I understand that. There's quite a few people all over that neighborhood that do it.
yeah, I understand that it's not, you're not the first and you won't be the last, but just wanted to clarify that.
All right. Hearing no further discussion, Jacob, whenever you're ready.
Mayor Murin,
Aye.
Mr. Martin,
Aye.
Mr. Dearmont,
Aye.
Ms. Schroeder.
Aye.
With the, in terms of the environmental items, you can email those to Jacob. Whatever information or documentation from the EPA that you get. And just a reminder, it's a home occupation, so no signage. All appearances must remain residential in character.
All right. Item number 2, application for final plat FP-01-2023 filed by Rocky 3 Investments LLC.
Due to the interlocking complexities of the next 3 items, we thought it would be best to start with Raising Cane's, then Get Go, and then once all that's ironed out, we can go to the final plat.
Okay, so we're gonna go to,
So which item would that be? That's.
that'd be 4.
Oh, we're going, yeah. Okay.
All right, let's try this again. Let's try item number 4, application for site plan review SP-11-2023 filed by Oleo Development for a new Raising Cane's drive-through restaurant on what is currently Lot 5 of the Findlay Village Mall. CPC staff comments.
Okay. So this request is located in the Findlay Village Mall subdivision on Tiffin Avenue, next to the intersection with Croy Drive. It is zoned C2 general commercial. To the south, east, and west, it's also zoned C2. And to the north of the mall site, there is R4 duplex triplex. It is not located within a 100-year floodplain, and the City of Findlay land use plan designates the area as regional commercial. The site is currently parking for the R&P Home and Harvest of Findlay. Staff analysis. Oleo Development is proposing a 2,791 square foot Raising Cane's drive-through restaurant on this proposed parcel. The site would remove part of the landscaping island that currently stretches onto the southwest corner of the site. The restaurant would feature a double drive-through lane that would wrap around the north side along the west side of the building. There's proposed 35 parking spaces for the restaurant. As with the Get-Go site, the site has an issue with meeting the 10-foot setback along Tiffin Avenue. They propose to utilize existing parking spots that are along Tiffin Avenue. Staff would like to see that shifted north to accommodate the setback. Landscaping was an area that was missing some items as well. For perimeter landscaping, they didn't provide any shrubs along Tiffin Avenue due to not having that parking setback. On the north side, they were unable to accommodate 2 trees as they were trying to avoid a utility line on the north side. Again, staff would like to see a shift in the lot to accommodate the setback, which would allow them to meet that landscaping requirement. Staff has concerns about the amount of traffic that will be generated as a result of the restaurant. We would recommend the operators work with the Findlay Police Department to have a plan in place for the grand opening and the next few weeks to alleviate some of those congestion concerns that could potentially arise. Staff recommendation. CPC staff recommends approval of the site plan for approval of application for site plan review SP-11-2023 filed by Oleo Development for a new Raising Cane's drive-through restaurant on what is currently Lot 5 of the Findlay Village Mall, subject to the following conditions. Shift the parking lot to be 10 feet from the front property line. Add 37 shrubs and 2 trees to meet the perimeter landscaping standard. and work with the Findlay Police Department to have a traffic plan for the grand opening. And I believe Eric will probably mention this later, but along with the site plan, we would also need to grant a conditional use for the drive-through.
Okay.
That wasn't explicitly written in, but
Okay.
want to make sure we noted it.
Thank you. Engineering?
So I'm going to try not to merge both this one and the get-go together, but I've been working with both applicants on kind of their entrance in and out on how both these sites are going to work, because they are going to work together. So if I say something about get-go, I don't mean to dictate one way or another, but they both work together, and we've been working with them on that. So coming with this drive coming in here, I know we had the right in, right out, which we have a traffic study for, they did a traffic study for that whole area, and they actually teamed up together. So we have Canes and Get-Go that they got together to do their traffic study. So that way we don't have one for here and then another one for here. We made sure they got together. Throughout there wasn't any recommendations on road improvements that are needing for the area, but it did show that right in, right out that it's in there. There are some minor adjustments that we can do with the intersection of Croy and Tiffin Avenue that we're going to take into consideration, because as everyone knows, Croy does back up quite a bit in that area. One of the things we were talking about with the applicant is originally we were looking at possibly putting a kind of a bypass lane over here, but then when we were talking with them, they kind of point out us this is actually 34 feet wide. So if more or less that's a 3-lane roadway within that system. So after working through some stuff with them, I didn't see a benefit of having a additional lane over here if we have additional stacking within this area and to get people in and out of those parking stalls. That was kind of our main concern, but what I didn't want to do is shrink that down to get another bypass lane, but now we are trapping people in there. So having that 34 feet wide, you are able to have people maneuver out. If there is stacking past that point down to here, you can still create stacking within that and get people in and out of that area. So it was one of those things I looked at, and you read 34 feet and you don't really think about it, but then when you think of a roadway width, that was one of the things that we kind of talked about, that we would actually like to keep that a little bit wider than anything so we don't trap people. One of my concerns with this right in, right out is if the stacking does get past this point, which this is a lot of vehicles in here, but is that getting into that right in, right out area? And I'll talk about it with Get-Go, but I think with that right in, right out, what we'll have to make sure is that no one can make a left in or a left out of that. We really have to change, we would have to change the radiuses on this and maybe widen it out a little bit more, so that way the cars are already going in that westbound direction. For them to make that turn, it's going to be very difficult. I know we're still going to have people do it, but I don't want to have a situation more down by Bright Road where we have a right in, right out, and we have people all the time making that a left out of there. So I think changing that will help out, so that way we don't have someone trying to shoot across into this lane. One of the other things I was seeing, which is not a big concern, I know they'll figure it out in the field, but when you had the layover here, this is a detention pond and they have some grass areas. Just make sure those match up, so that way it's kind of flowing through there. Like I said, not a huge deal. I know we'll get that figured out in the field, but right through here though is we were talking to them how long it would take to order and then how long for deliveries. My initial thought was, well, you're going to get a lot of people stacking up here to get their order, but with their benefit with their kind of ordering system, they only have a couple choices. It's not like you have to pick through, so you're really not going to experience as much stacking in this area compared to where you will be in the delivery of the food. So I think it'd be beneficial where they have shown to have that additional stacking with the dual lanes in the receiving of the food than instead of the ordering type system. But really, I mean, the utilities with this is fairly simple. They're just regular taps with that. I think a couple questions I would need from the applicant is if they are needing an irrigation line, because if it's an irrigation line, that's a separate tap. But we can work that with them or their construction crews on that, on what kind of taps they'll be needing for that. But just to look at that site, those are a couple comments that we had as I was kind of working through with them.
Do you recall when we were looking at this? I mean, I don't think that map does it justice. How many cars? Was it almost 30 cars that can stack in there?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think the map actually does it justice of how many vehicles they actually can stack.
Right.
So just want to make that point.
Yeah, and there was quite a bit of stacking, like I said, in this receiving of the food area, where in their type of business is going to be the longest duration in between ordering and receiving food, just because, like I said, it's a couple menu item which benefits them in the long run for the speed of that.
Quick question, the two drawings that we've had up here are different in this area?
Yes.
Which one is the correct one?
This is the submission. This is an old site plan, but it shows the site. So
Okay.
this one gives us context of the site in general.
Okay, so we're
So-
gonna have the 2 lanes coming in right off of this
Yeah,
main drive
so
here.
this is just for context within the mall area.
Okay.
Very astute.
And that was one of the concerns. That was one of the concerns I had, and after talking through with them, I mean, really, it's not causing backup on the streets, where that's kind of my main concern, but you know, this is another conflict point. But that is something we talked with them, pointed out to them, and they kind of addressed it. But you know, you could have a situation where someone's trying to go drive through here, and someone's going to sneak in through the north side as well. That's going to create stacking on their property and on this property to the north, but it's not going to affect the roadway, so I wasn't as concerned. That's their operation type system.
Yeah.
Fire prevention.
Overall, I would kind of echo what Jeremy was talking about. Our main concerns are traffic patterns and how it might affect the streets around it. Hanco's on Croy, and obviously increased traffic on that is going to cause them issues getting out to the intersection. So we're just concerned about the traffic flow and patterns.
Thank you. So the recommendation before the commission from staff is staff recommends approval of application for site plan review SP-11-2023 filed by Olio Development for a new Raising Cane's drive-through restaurant on what is currently Lot 5 of the Findlay Village Mall, subject to the following conditions. Shift the parking lot to be 10 feet from the front property line. Add the 37 shrubs and 2 trees to meet the perimeter parking standard. Work with Findlay Police Department to have a traffic plan for grand opening. Ensure that the site landscaping curbing coincides with the site to the east. And I'm just going to note, conditional use on drive-through. Okay, so discussion.
And there was one additional, one of the planning commission members brought this up, and I think it's appropriate. I think we need to see what the plan is for this parking lot. This is not a standalone site that is not interacting with anything else. It's part of a larger facility, and I think we need to see the plan for this, how they plan to do the parking. As it stands, there's a parking space right in front of their driveway. So I think giving us the context of the striping plan to the north will be beneficial to understand how the site will work.
Okay. All right, I believe the applicant is here, and I don't know if you guys are wanting to both come up together or if we're just wanting to start with Raising Cane's. If you could come up, introduce yourself. And then if you want to start off, I'm assuming that you guys have been in communications with the other lot on restriping that parking lot?
Yes, and I will try to find what is the overall look for it and supply it for you. My name is Jar Barreto. I'm with Olio Development Group.
Based off of the discussion that we've been having so far, are there any comments you would like to share on the conditions that are currently placed on the development?
No, I think you guys did a great job at explaining the project and all the conversations we've had. I looked a little bit more into what is the operations of the car stacking, just to give everybody a little bit of peace of mind. So one of the things that the operations of the restaurant does is that they are monitoring how many cars are entering the lot, and the moment that the cars enter the lot, the chicken goes into the fryers. that means that like you mentioned, it's not a lot in the menu. It's just chicken fingers, and you pick how many you want. And of course, butter, the toast, butter both sides. Keep that in mind. So when the cars enter the lot, the chicken goes into the fryer. And when you order, from the moment that you order to the moment that you go to that pickup window is 2.5 minutes. So that means that the stacking that we have there kind of accommodate for that. Now the biggest concern is obviously when it opens. And I think we have addressed, we will work with, we will do a traffic management plan. We will work with the police department. We will make sure that we are accommodating for it. We don't want any type of issues with adjacent neighbors or anything bleeding into the road. We're pretty far away from the road in the way that the stacking in this particular layout works. So we should be pretty okay. But if something were to happen, we will have that traffic management control plan set.
I just wanted to make a point of that. Our Findlay Police Department will absolutely work with you, our street department, when it comes to cones, messaging, and so forth. I just want to make a point, though, that they will work with you to create a traffic plan, but we're going to have to find alternatives if we want them out there policing the traffic flow because of manpower. I just don't know if we can commit dedicated police officers for this. So we'll have to have discussions with the police department on alternatives for canes for this process.
So things that we've done in the past is hire out the off-duty police.
Okay.
So we have done it in the past, just to make sure that everything flows. We just hire out and pay off-duty police officers so that we don't compromise the safety with the
Great.
ones that are on duty.
Just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know we did do that with Chick-fil-A as well, so it's not necessarily unusual when we have grand openings of things.
Yes.
Dan, Jackie, I know you guys had some questions.
I just had one question. We were talking about shifting to get the 10-foot setback down here. How are you planning on accommodating that? Are you going to shift everything north or narrow this drive here?
Well,
Is there a plan for that?
one of the conversations we were having is that is a very challenging portion of our site. We don't want to narrow that particular access drive because it's following a full pattern within like the entire development. So I will have to go back basically, not to the drawing board, but I will have to probably remove that parking, work with GetGo, see if we can get some sort of shared parking or something. But the moment that I accommodate for that 10-foot setback, I lose all that parking. So I will need to.
And I know we have the same issue with the GetGo site.
Yeah, and the idea was to follow what was there previously, because the parking is there and it does not accommodate for those 10 feet
Right.
setback. But technically, in order to operate this restaurant, we need 29 parking spaces. The moment that we remove that, we are kind of losing that operational parking.
Mm-hmm.
So it is something that we need to go and talk to Raising Cane's and understand how we can make it work, basically.
So I want to make sure that I'm looking at this right. So the current setback from the property line, it looks maybe like 3 feet. It's hard to tell.
What if we went out there today? What is it?
Well, that's not what I was asking, but yes, that is a good point because I believe it is consistent with their current proposal to
Yes.
keep it right there. It's like we have the sidewalk, a very narrow strip, and then parking lot.
Is there? I included a picture. It's
I got a lot of papers over here, guys, and you threw me out of
And
order.
I've got a lot of slides.
You're really causing a lot of problems.
I think
Sorry.
it's roadway curb, grass, sidewalk, and then there's a curb on the backside. I think it's right now it's pretty tight, right up against the
I don't think
sidewalk.
there's any grass. It's pavement, curb, sidewalk.
And straight up
That's
to the
exactly what-
pavement.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's the question? What are we trying to solve here?
So the
How
code
much they actually
states
have
that
to
I
move
need a 10-foot setback, and then that will increase to the 37 shrubs and the 2 trees. And I can add I can add more landscaping somewhere else. We wanted to go for a variance for that particular portion of this conditional approval, I guess, because of it's the existing condition that's there, and we're just mimicking what's there currently.
So I think, Jeremy, could we, I guess I am okay with maintaining the existing kind of layout through that corridor if we could plant some smaller trees in the city right of way, in that grassy area next to the roadway. I think that this is an opportunity to kind of clean up that area. So I know we've talked to like AEP in the past, and we could plant some small trees through there, maybe flowering of some kind, that, you know, if they wanted to donate them, then the city could plant them. I don't know, would that be a possibility?
Yeah, I mean, it's possible we can look in that. I think the only thing I would have there is a water line. I think the sanitary's in the middle of the road, or it's off in the roadway a little bit. So that is something we can look at. If we're entertaining that, Matt, I don't mean to have you bounce back, but we can talk about it. You guys have this crosswalk up right here. I know you might lose 1 or 2 spots, but maybe kind of have if we're going to put some shrubs in the front, do we put some landscaping there? I'm not saying we do that, but just kind of create that pedestrian walk through. I know you're going to be losing 2 spots, but that might be a compromise. Instead of moving back 10 feet, put a little extra landscaping right there. That'll give a protection for the pedestrians that are coming from the sidewalk up into it, type situation. But we can look at putting them in the right of way to create a little bit more landscaping feel.
Yeah, I understand the current condition, and you're using that as your baseline, which I respect that, but this is also an opportunity to improve the aesthetics along a very busy corridor. So when we as a city see that opportunity, we want to take advantage of it. So finding the balance between what you need and what we can try to improve on.
The trees might have issues with their neighbors up above here,
Yeah,
the power lines.
Yeah, there's only certain types that we can put
And
in that.
I think that would actually look kind of weird to have some bushes or trees in the tree lawn there. But just my opinion. You know, and I think the value, you know, if you ask me what I envision having the setbacks, and as the mall redevelops, potentially, you know, that 10 foot is kind of established along the entire way where possible. And, you know, there's potential for, I think, you know, if we can't get 10 feet, you know, if we can get 6 or 7, 5, less than 5 probably might be tough. I don't know. But if we could get some, I think, just to break up, to have that space between the sidewalk and there, that would be a great. So.
My concern too is at least if you can get some kind of a grass area in here. I don't know how wide this sidewalk is, but I think it's a pretty standard 4 foot or so.
Yeah.
We risk having cars hanging over the sidewalk and blocking part of that walkable area, with the curb being right up against it.
Yeah, I guess my only I agree. I would love to have more buffer and green space and more aesthetically pleasing. I just want to be very clear, though, that I don't think, I think we should work with them. I just don't, I wouldn't want that to kill the project. That's my only
Agreed.
comment.
Agreed.
I don't think getting an additional 3 feet or whatnot is worth ruining it, so.
No,
But-
agreed.
But I agree. I think, you know, Jeremy or whoever, if we can work with them to try to gain some additional space there, that would be preferred.
And then just a note, I think when along with the striping plan, obviously some of this will go away. It would be nice to get clarification of if part of it's staying or if it's going to be moved to the side of the building. The back,
The outdoor
yes.
storage sales.
I might suggest if we can't if we end up not, getting any kind of a grass area between the sidewalk and the curb, we might need some bumpers or something just to keep the cars from pulling all the way up to the curb and blocking the sidewalk. There are a lot of walkers through there, a lot of people traveling through there. on the
And we
sidewalk.
can add those stops.
Yeah.
Like, that's something that we can definitely add. I do want to say that for this particular portion of our site, we try to always utilize 20 feet for our cars. And we're already at 18 down there because of the sidewalk and the drive aisle. So we're very tight in that portion of our site so that we can, everything is being driven by that access road that is basically merging everything together. So I will lose a lot of parking just because I cannot move that access road. Otherwise, it just becomes a weird jog. Let me see if I can do this. Yeah, okay, so there we go. So if I were to move everything up, it creates a weird, oh, this is not working. Oh, there we go. It creates a weird jog here that doesn't follow the line anymore. And that would be if I want to keep the parking. If I just remove the parking, then yes, sure, I can accommodate a forest down there if we wanted to. But yeah, that's where I am currently. That's where the challenge is. And we can add the bumpers. We can definitely add what the engineer said about some landscaping here so that we can have that pedestrian. Like, I think that's a good call out, and we can definitely work with that.
Maybe angling some parking so you're not losing a ton of spaces. something.
We
I don't
can't
know.
angle it because it's a two-way. If it was one way, then we could angle it. But because it's a two-way street, we can't, doesn't work. We have tried it. Yes, we've tried a couple of iterations of the site. That's why this one is a little bit different than the one that we actually submitted. We've worked on it.
I had a couple items. So,
Yeah.
So when you're in this aisle right here, and do you cross over to get to this pay window? Is that what that? Okay. So what is the purpose? Is this just an escape lane right here? This second lane, or are you actually going to deliver food on that lane?
We can deliver food on that lane.
Okay.
So the cars can continue when it's a high traffic moment, like
Okay.
5 p.m., where everybody's like looking for chicken
Okay.
fingers for dinner. They can go there, and then we have our staff go outside and deliver it to them.
Okay. So okay. All right.
Yeah. So the cars will stack all the way to the front.
All right. Jeremy, can you go to a different site plan that shows the ham bone, Matt?
But
I want to talk about. Isn't there a power pole right here, Jeremy? That we need. Does that get relocated?
I was going to discuss that with Get Go on the next
sorry.
site.
Okay, sorry, jumped ahead.
Fine,
Okay.
we're very together.
All right. Do we need to? All right. Okay. Do we need to do anything with this? We're taking part of this landscape island out, right? Is everybody cool with just leaving that the way it is then? I don't know if there's any issues there. Maybe not. I mean, maybe it's okay.
I mean, if I could give you my dream scenario, it would completely remove that and
Yeah.
make, a roadway that's going all the way up.
That's kind of what I think.
But,
yeah.
then it's kind of one of those, you're crossing into another you're having Kane's site dictate another property, what
Right.
they need to do on their property.
It comes down to that whole traffic flow for the mall.
Right.
But-
I mean, that would be nice if we could eliminate that and shoot people all the way up
Yeah.
to the mall type area and then back down. But you're getting quite a few entities mixed up into that.
But we can reach out and request that, see
Okay.
if they're open
Alright.
to it. If we're gonna be doing construction in that area anyways, it would be pretty
I mean,
easy to
it
pull
does
that
look
out.
like they would be losing one row of parking.
I mean,
I'm just pointing that out.
Yeah. Okay.
we're putting a Get Go and a Racing Kings. They're losing a little bit more than just one row of parking. Okay, gotcha.
So I got a question. If we were able to work with the mall developer and say we got this removed, if we're going to be removing this and reworking this, if we pushed this, your drive-through or your through lane, because I know what you're saying, then you're having an offset intersection. You have some grass area up here. Would you be able to shift the whole site up if then we change where they're crossing into, so it's a or a straight through, and they're not having to make a movement.
What is the requirement for the top landscape aisle? Like there, that one. Like what is the minimum? Because I cannot shift the property line. So if I move up, I need to get rid of that portion
Right,
up top.
right, and well, that's what I was saying. I don't know what the full
So
would be on that,
I
but
think we
that's
would all
kind of
prefer-
compromise.
our priority would be the front door. Would be if reducing this and putting it here.
What is the width on that currently? On the
So-
back portion?
I think
I don't know out of the top of my head. Then I guess the other question would be, don't I have setbacks from the back as well? Wouldn't I be encroaching the setback? Is that okay? Is it okay to encroach
that
the?
would be, yes, that would be okay.
Okay.
We can give variances.
That would be an easier variance to obtain than a front variance. Well, I'm not saying it's easier, but logistically it would be a better request.
So,
And I'd gladly go to BZA and support and voice my support for that.
Yeah.
But that way, if you're pulling your curb up, let's just say to right here, and I get what you mean. I mean, they're going to have to come up and then kind of get around it. But if we can bump this curb up, you're right, this curb up to match with your guys and remove this, I mean, that would give you, you would be able to kind of shift that whole thing up.
and
I
leave
know-
the 31 on the bottom as the access.
Say that again. Yeah. It would be the same width and everything. It's just, I see what you're meaning. Where when you move this up, you're changing this whole intersection. But if we make the other side of the intersection match what you guys are doing, so that way it's a straight through,
Okay.
and you won't really change your turn radiuses too much. I know we'd have to get them to buy into it,
That's
but
what we really want. I think that's the solution we're looking for.
And then we can shrink the north side grass.
you're gonna lose grass on the north side and maybe setback variance, but you're gonna gain in the front. But we would have to get the west side to match the east side in order for their site to work.
Understood.
Just got to work your magic, Jeremy.
So let's talk about Get-Go real quick then,
Okay.
in this same shift, to make sure that wouldn't cause a negative ripple effect.
It will cause an effect on their side as well.
Yeah, but I want to
Right.
make sure it would be,
So
we
all
can
have to
accommodate
be-
it.
We have to all be in alignment here,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
I'll let Lee.
So we have option A, B, and C right now.
Yeah.
Go on.
I'll let Lee come up.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind stepping up and just introduce yourself real quick.
Would you like me to read the staff comments before?
Let's just talk real quick. Yeah, sure, go for it.
I'm going to skip through the general info. I'm just going to do the staff analysis. Okay.
Yeah.
So
you're right.
this Get-Go is proposing a 6,369 square foot Get-Go convenience store and gas station on the site. It would include 44 parking spaces for the convenience store, which meets the standard. There would also be a drive-through component to the convenience store on the north side of the site. The drive-through will be able to accommodate the required 8-car stacking on site. Along the drive-through, there is an uncurbed diagonal striped area. While it says "do not enter," the applicant indicated that it would essentially function as an escape lane. On the south side of the site, there is a 12-pump gas station. On the west side of the site, there is a detention area. The dumpster is located in the northwest corner of the site. It has been proposed to be screened by a privacy chain link fence with vinyl slats. Staff would recommend the enclosure be vinyl only and no chain link. The site has two proposed new curb cuts. One is a full entrance onto Croy Drive, while the other is a right-in, right-out onto Tiffin Avenue. Staff would like to see the right-in, right-out changed to be more of a fully dedicated dive-in lane to discourage people from being able to turn left out of the site. One of staff's concerns about the layout is it does not meet that 10-foot front yard setback along Tiffin Avenue. the applicant indicated they would need to encroach on that setback to allow for there to be enough pavement for the trucks to have the turn radius around the underground storage tanks. Staff would still like to see the site shifted to accommodate the setback. In terms of landscaping, staff discussed with the applicant about the foundation plantings. Were not necessarily required around the building, so they have shown them as kind of clustered around the perimeter of the site and in that detention area. Staff would like to see a reduction in the size of the landscaped area on the north side between the drive-through and the R&P to allow for the site to be shifted to accommodate that 10-foot setback along Tiffin Avenue. So our staff recommendation was CPC staff recommends approval of the application for site plan review SP-10-2023 filed by GetGo Operating LLC / Giant Eagle Inc. for a new GetGo gas station on what is currently Lot 5 of the Findlay Village Mall, subject to the following conditions. Shift the parking lot be 10 feet from the property line along Tiffin Avenue. Work with the city on the right in, right out onto Tiffin Avenue and upgrade the dumpster enclosure fencing to be vinyl.
Engineering.
So, I mean, utility-wise, pretty basic. Again, just service connections on that. If you guys need irrigation, that's a separate tap. But we'll work that out with you guys when you're in construction with that. Like I said, we had a traffic study for that to kind of verify what we were needing here and what we were needing here. Like I said, Croy Drive is already stacking up quite a bit. So it's more of a timing issue. We can create another lane within there. All you're going to do is create more queuing. If we can't get the people through the intersection, you're still going to stack them. So it's a timing thing like they identified in the traffic study. So that is something that we are going to kind of look at as well. So appreciate them kind of pointing that out as well and giving recommendations. But with this right in, right out, right now you have it, there's a electric pole that's right in the middle, and then there's a guy wire that's coming down, and it actually lands about right there. So what are you guys going to be removing those poles or changing the guy wire? That was one question. The other thing, like Jacob was saying, is I'd like to see that radius change, so that way the only way you can come in is you have to make a pretty good right turn in, and when you leave, you have no chance of even making that a left-hand turn, or something like it, or someone even on Tiffin Avenue making that left into there. Just kind of lengthen those out, so that island's probably going to be a little bit wider. I think it's only like 15, 20 foot right now, maybe making it a 30, 40 foot to kind of push them out a little bit more. But the thing that's going to come in with that is the poles. I see where you guys are putting that is trying to fish in between poles to put this. So if you're already doing pole work because of that, maybe this would be our opportunity to actually set those where they need to be. I know it's an expensive thing, but it, is an underground option just in that area, something that we could look at, go from a pole here underground past your guys' property and then back up to aerial within that area. So that's something you can look at, and you don't have to worry about the poles, and you can kind of really work that right in, right out as you would need. But the big thing, what we're getting, where we see accidents with these type situations is where someone's trying to make a left into this or make a left out of it. So really getting people to already have their cars heading in this direction is going to be a huge safety factor for us in the long run.
Fire prevention.
Pretty much is the same as other site. Just concerned about the traffic and how it relates to emergency vehicle access.
Thank you. Okay, so the recommendation on this from staff is also recommends approval of the site plan review, can't speak, SP-10-2023 filed by GetGo Operations LLC / Giant Eagle Inc. for a new GetGo gas station on what is currently Lot 5 of the Findlay Village Mall. Subject to the following conditions: shift the parking lot to be 10 feet from the front property line, work with the city on the right in, right out on Tiffin Avenue, upgrade the dumpster enclosure facing to vinyl only, ensure that the site landscaping, curb, detention pond, etc. coincide with the site to the west. So if you could come forward and introduce yourself, and then I don't know if you want to jump into the discussion related to the front setback and what may be able to be accommodated.
All right. Well, good morning, Madam Mayor, Planning Commission members, staff, and the public. My name is Lee May. I'm Site Development Manager with Gecko, which is wholly a part of Giant Eagle Incorporated. And boy, I felt like it's already warmed up for me. A couple things. We don't like asking for variances. Life's a lot easier when you just meet everything in the code. So this was quite a dilemma. Not as big a dilemma as me figuring out how to work this. There. So with this site, number one, this property line right there, it's a little hard to see on this picture or drawing. It's the line with the broken dashes. That was determined by the property owner, and it's really controlled because ideally we would ask for more depth, maybe not as much width for a better layout here. That was kind of controlled based on their agreement with Harvest Home. So he was kind of fixed at that. So our canvas was set. This is what we have to work with. I've been doing this many years, and I start at the beginning, go across the whole y-axis here. Where can I squeeze a foot here or there to try to increase this landscape setback in the front? The first item would be the USTs and the fuel delivery truck delivering them. So that's kind of fixed. And then, of course, we have the distance between the dispenser. The canopy's up in the air, so that's not so important, but it's actually the distance from the dispenser to the back of the parking space, where you have a functioning drive aisle, plus you have cars getting fuel. Of course, each car is different, but most receive the fuel near the rear quarter panel. And so we have to always think that maybe ideally we would have showed a few vehicles in fuel position here. So we really don't have much to get out of this drive aisle. We want to keep that functioning as two-way. Parking spaces, boy, these spaces right here are the most prime, most important spaces to us. So we really kind of, if any parking spaces are going to be eliminated, those would be the last. Then there's our building. This is our prototype, yes. Could the building be modified? Maybe somewhat, but I heard, I think it was Matt referenced this as a Gecko gas station. We don't want you to think that way. We're really trying to become more of a food destination and a convenience store that, oh, by the way, for convenience, we sell gas. So we've got a rather large C-store here. It's a little different than probably most C-stores you see, even being built today, because, like I said, I'm part of Giant Eagle. We really have a focus on more fresh products, more produce, more baked goods. So we have a larger store. Plus, we have inside seating now. So there's little we could do to really shrink the building, other than without compromising our new call it our brand or the path we're going forward. In the back, we only have about 14 or 15 feet between the building and the curb line for the drive-through. Ideally, the kind of the universal standard should be around 20 feet for a car to make that movement. So we've already, and you can't see it in this without zooming in, we've already kind of reconfigured this to have the car swing and then kind of swing back up against the building to get to the service window. I could only squeeze inches out here and make it a still functioning radius. And then in the back, we only have I think 2 feet between the curb line and the property line. So ultimately, if it is a condition that 10 feet be provided, most likely we will have to look at this internally because we'll probably have to lose the drive-through. Without the drive-through, yeah, it's an easy ask. We just push everything back and accommodate the 10 feet. I was going to ask if you would consider, I know you kind of talked about this with the Raising Cane side, is we'd be more than happy to do a continuous row of evergreen hedges or shrubs there to kind of mask or screen and kind of soften that transition into the lot. But if that's going to be a condition, we'll certainly look at it. So that was really the big item. The other ones, the right in, right out, yeah, I agree. A car could make a left out the way it's designed. So we can increase the radius and I'll call it more of the approach to make it much more intuitive and difficult to make the wrong movement there. As far as the utility pole and the guy wire, I won't lie, that kind of tweaked that location a little bit, but generally we wanted to make it mid-block or mid-access between the existing two intersections. So we were kind of shooting for midway, and I think we did tweak it a couple feet to the left or west to do that. But yeah, ultimately, let's do this. We will work with the staff to come up with the best design, and then wherever the poles are, we'll work it out. We either have to relocate them, go underground, or do something to accommodate those. Because, you know, this is a very long-term decision or construction here. You don't want to compromise that entrance just because of a pole or a guy wire. And then, yeah, we'll certainly work with Oleo better to make sure our alignments can line up better. I will point out it's a little hard to tell with this aerial. It's a little washed out. But if you can see, this is a drive aisle with parking at most like, I think it's 60 degrees. But so this is a one-way drive parking bay. We did this layout to receive that bay. And then on the other side where it's going toward the mall in a one-way fashion, we made it so that we could tie into that aisle. So that if you did come down and all the spaces were full and you wanted to park at Harvest Home, you could just kind of loop around and come back up. Over here, as you can see in this aerial, and I noticed in some other aerials, this outdoor display area changes somewhat over the years. Our thought was, if that ever goes away, we will line up with the underlying traffic or parking bay for the mall. So we just showed it as hatched, and we were thinking maybe some kind of temporary barricade or something, but actually install the curbs and islands so that if that changes, and I think the landlord is talking about maybe moving their display some to the side, so we'd be able to receive that. Of course, this can easily be modified to just be a continuous curb and landscape area if that was the preference. One other thing I want to point is you look at this layout. You really have the contrast of two different drive-throughs here. I've experience with McDonald's, and I know what the difference is in a QSR and a convenience store drive-through. Drive-throughs with convenience stores is very new. Gecko only has one operating right now, so it's very new for us. But based on testimony from somebody I know very, very well at a competitor of ours, public testimonies, these counts are drastically less. I think in that particular chain's top 10 stores, their peak hour drive-through count was around 18 or 20 cars per hour at the noon to 1 hour, whereas at a quick service restaurant, they can easily approach 100, much higher. So I don't think that queuing's a real concern for us or anyone at this site. I think I hit the, the last one was the dumpster enclosure. If the condition could be either, if I would ask if you'd make that a condition, if you would make it be vinyl only or masonry to match the building, if that could be the condition. I think we probably would prefer that.
We wouldn't be upset with masonry that matches the building. Quick question. What are these?
Oh, yeah. I think that was kind of left over. What that was the intent was and then we kind of had to back off because of, not sure how that agreement with Harvest Home goes, but the thought was, okay, I think I mentioned we can receive this parking bay and feed into this one, but what about these other ones? Because we're putting a landscape island here to create our drive-through lane. That was hatching out the leftover parking spaces, and what's not shown, this would become a left east-west drive aisle to capture those parking bays.
So, I think so you've taken into consideration their parking lot and things line up. I guess I think that further a little bit solidifies that we need to see this, because in some ways it potentially could not be angled parking depending on how they do it, and that changes the widths of the drive aisles and location and stuff. So I think that really kind of, because in this case, I could be wrong, this site didn't really as much indicate kind of the design of the current parking lot? Is that,
We started with looking at angle parking in that particular area, but knowing that it's going to change, we modified it to suit the operations needs.
okay.
Hey, Matt, can you go back, please? Yeah, right there. So the landscape island that you're referring to on the north side of your property, is that, just want to clarify, that's, nope, the long, elongated one, yeah. Is that technically outside of the parcel?
It is.
Property
So
line.
and I believe the landlord's working with Harvest Home to get approval for how far we can encroach that. So, to be honest, I probably should state that I only control what would go to the property line. But I think in my opinion, it's a better design to have a little landscape buffer there to kind of separate the drive out for the parking area and the drive through.
Did you go to the owner to purchase another 10-foot? Is that-
Yes.
Oh,
yes,
okay, you
we
did, and that
we
was
did, yeah.
that was not.
Yeah, that
But
was,
yet they're going to allow you to potentially put a landscape island there.
he's seeking approval from the other Harvest Home, his other
Okay.
tenant, and yeah, like I said, I think
Sounds
it
like
said at the
bad
beginning-
business. I'd
it-
sell it before I let you put.
it'd be so much easier because we
Yeah.
don't really need it that much width.
Yeah.
You know, if I need to eliminate some parking, yeah, I could take out some of this parking here and put all the landscaping in the world up front. But I couldn't go any deeper because ideally that would be the best, especially when you're creating a parcel. It's not an existing parcel right now, so you kind of have that control.
Do you need our attention, Eric?
Hey, what is the minimum of front that you think that you need besides a 10-foot? Can you meet anything in the front?
Well, we're showing 4 feet now. We're gonna try to see what we can do to improve it. Maybe a compromise might be if we do get closer to the 10 feet, but we have a little notch out for the USTs.
Yeah.
Which
I'd be
this
okay
is,
with the
of course,
notch out,
flat.
though.
You know, this
A
is
notch out would be
flat.
all right.
Yeah.
I mean,
so.
I'm not exactly sure that site plan, it looks very similar. So
Yeah.
I want to go to the official one.
Yeah, it might be a little
It'll take me
clearer.
a second here. Oh, not too bad.
Yeah, it's a little cleaner. Yeah, or easier to read without the background.
Yep.
What I've highlighted here is
So I think
the yellow is the parcel is highlighted, and the green is that landscape setback up there.
is the green is 10 foot or what is that?
Green is 10
Dimension.
feet from the
10 feet. Okay.
right away line, property line to that's 10 feet back.
Yeah.
So we encroach it. You know, I'll squeeze these drive outs a bit. I don't know if we can, maybe, you know, sometimes you take 6 inches, a foot here, or here, or here, or here, and it
what's
starts to
going on?
add up, and it means
What's going
something
on right
when,
here? Are
when
we-
you get that.
Are we encroaching on the setback right here with the building is beyond outside the setback?
That is correct. It does. That red hatched or shaded area
Yeah.
is the building setback for the parcel. So I think we have
Does that
to get a
require
variance for
What's-
that.
What's the deal? Is that okay or does that require a variance to be,
Requires a variance.
requires variance? Okay. Well, if we could accommodate this, I'd be okay with that.
No,
I mean,
of course, if we, for every inch or foot or whatever, we can slide the entire layout to the, yeah, it's pretty much north or toward the mall, that encroachment with the building setback gets a little greater.
So maybe I'm looking at this too black and white, but based off of what I see here, you have maxed out this layout. Especially when we're talking about, I think, overall, this layout makes sense. I think, the team has kind of brought up a couple of minor tweaks that we want to see made. I think all of us ideally are trying to figure out how we can gain a little more space on that front setback. But based off of what I'm seeing, to accommodate what you need for your site and the fact that you already have your landscaping buffer technically off of your parcel, I don't really see how else you could shift it north. Excuse me.
I would say, you know, when you have drive aisles around canopies and cars fueling, it's not an exact science down to the inch. So a lot of it's guidelines. What can you live with? I would say we can probably squeeze, without anybody getting too upset operationally, a foot or two out of each drive aisle and squeeze it a little bit more. And maybe I can modify this drive-through radius a bit more. I just want to be very careful. The more I make the car swing out and come back toward the building, you always want to be careful when you're pulling cars toward the building. You want to keep that nice and gradual.
Yeah.
And we'd be happy to add landscaping anywhere else we can. Oh, and I should have mentioned too, I think when we kind of transitioned to Get-Go, there were some thoughts about shifting this access away from Tiffin. That would be no issue at all with this layout. It's very adaptive to that drive aisle moving.
So where the Get-Go site is a little bit different, I was just reading our code. That's not parking in the front. So they don't have that 10-foot setback in the front for the parking. So your 4 foot, I mean, if you can expand a little bit more to fit landscaping in there as much as you can, that handles your landscape requirements that you would have,
Okay.
because you don't have parking there, so you don't have to go 10 foot back.
Okay.
Traditionally views the gas station area as parking. So
Well, I would interpret that different myself, but
Yeah, so I think what I'm hearing, and, you know, representatives from Raising Cane's, you know, I think what I'm hearing is, and I, you know, I'll speak for myself here. I'm not necessarily inclined to table this. What I am inclined to do is to add the condition that they work with Jeremy and Matt to see what any additional space can be gained on that front. Obviously, that's going to require talking to the western property owner as well about maybe the landscape barrier and the entrance landscaping shifting north slightly, as well as then getting the layout for the overall parking north. You know, obviously, maybe I'm being too kind in the fact that I think that that property north is going to do what they need to accommodate this traffic south of them, because it's going to benefit their business as well. And they, you know, have been in discussions with these folks for a while now. So I think that, you know, plus that parking lot needs restriped anyways. So I guess, does that seem reasonable
I'm okay
to the
with it.
group?
Yeah,
Like,
I'm good with
I
that.
trust the smart people over there and the smart people over there to, I don't know why you're all looking behind you. Yes, I'm referring to you people. No, to kind of work and finagle and try to find those inches that add up into a couple of feet. I think everybody understands the goal of what we're trying to achieve here, and would do so in a good faith effort. Okay. Was there any other items? Right now, the conditions I have for Get-Go are, I will figure out a nice way to say, work with the city and regional planning to accommodate additional frontage
Yeah.
space. Worked with the city on the right in, right out on Tiffin Avenue. Upgrade the dumpster enclosure fencing to vinyl or masonry. Ensure that the site landscaping, curb, detention pond coincide with the site to the west. And that we would receive the parking plan for the properties to the north.
The power pole.
Power pole.
So we're going to work with the city on relocating the power pole.
And I heard someone mention the drive-throughs. Are those a conditional use that we need to approve, or?
yep,
But that would be a separate item.
yep.
Okay, so then on the Raising Cane's, the conditions I have are work with the city and regional planning to find additional frontage as possible. Add 37 shrubs and 2 trees to meet the perimeter parking standard. And then work with the Finley Police Department to have a traffic plan for the grand opening. And I'll add the condition of the parking plan for the north. Parking plan.
If I may say something.
Yes.
The 37 shrubs and the 2 trees was if I was able to get that full frontage. So by adding some, I'm gonna try to get maybe 2 feet more than what we already have. I think we have 3 feet right now. The amount of shrubs will be modified per what I
That's-
can actually get.
We will work with you on that.
Okay, all right, just wanted to.
So you want to soften the language there? Add.
Yeah,
you
we can
could-
say work with regional planning
Okay.
to
Okay, all right,
maximize landscaping.
thank you.
Yep.
The mayor, do you want to also include in there the variance requests for conditions?
Talk me through what,
Because they're going to have to seek variances
okay.
for the building for one, but then the front, however that may work out,
Just that we recommend the variances to be granted.
as part of the condition. If they do need to get variances, that obviously the approvals won't happen.
Approval based upon receiving the appropriate variance.
Okay.
That this island over here. I mean, so if we slide this back X number of feet, and we have to, this has to be removed. I mean, is that on the mall property or is that on the restaurant? I mean, who's because they're the ones
mall.
creating the issue, so it's almost like it's the restaurant's cost to, right? Or
That, I mean, I see that the city will approach the mall and set up a meeting and have a conversation about that traffic flow there and see what their response is.
Yeah, because I think, if they grant the permission, I'm pretty sure they'll be okay with tearing out an additional 10 feet of landscaping to the west of that, but they would have to obviously have permission from the property owner. But I don't necessarily see, that's not really a condition of the project, in my opinion.
what if we slide it back and it's in alignment, and now you have this landscape right in the outbound lane? You know what I mean? So, and the mall says, I'm not spending, that's not my part, it's not my cost. I mean, how do we deal with that?
One won't happen without the other, is how I interpreted this. If that barrier, landscape barrier that's existing, if they're not willing to remove that completely, there's no shift, right?
Okay,
Okay.
I mean,
okay. Well, they might agree to remove it. They're just not going to pay for it.
Sure.
They may say, oh, yeah, do whatever you want, but I'm not paying for it. That,
Yeah.
you're leaving us quite a list.
Well, I know. I mean, I'm just kind of, that's going to happen, though, right?
No.
I mean,
Yeah, and I
that's-
think I see shaking heads and, I'll volunteer to go out and somebody can lend me a pickup truck and I'll clear it out.
Cool.
I
yeah,
got a
we'll-
sledgehammer to
we'll-
take out some anger.
The clearing out's not the expensive part, though, right? I mean, it's the putting back. You got to
Right.
repave
So
it.
we will try
Right.
to coordinate a
Okay.
meeting with the mall, and we'll have some
Okay.
folks representing the properties, try to get that and just see what discussions happen.
Is there a mall representative in the audience? Is there?
No.
No. Okay.
We'll work it out with them. I mean, it's not the first time we kind of ran in one of these, so
Okay.
we'll get something that's comparable for everyone.
I have confidence if they're willing to do that, we can find a way.
All right.
All right, Jacob, would you like to read back what we have, or I'm gonna put this on you?
Oh, goodness. Okay, so for get-go, work with HRPC and the city to, how would you want me to phrase this? Maximize the front yard setback?
Yes.
Is that appropriate? Okay, that's one. Two, work with the city on working on the placement of the power poles along Tiffin.
Good. City /
Well-
AUP,
Well,
because we can we can work to help coordinate that.
Yeah, we can help coordinate. So just put city and electrical company.
3 was receive parking plan layout for the site to the north to make sure it aligns with the site. Am I missing anything else?
For get-go, we need upgrade the dumpster enclosure,
Oh, yes.
fencing to vinyl or masonry. And then the other item that was still listed was ensure that the site landscaping, curbing, detention pond, et cetera, coincide. And I believe that,
Let me
I
ask you
believe that's it.
something. Is the requirement on the mall alignment, the drive aisles, is that on Gitco, or is that we're going to put that on the next part of the zoning change? Because that's
The final plat.
the final plat. I think
Well,
that's-
I feel
isn't
like the language that we have here is just that we receive a copy of it. Right
Okay.
now, it's not saying that
who does it?
it's going to have to
Okay.
be,
All right.
conducive. I think that's
Maybe that's on all three then.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I did
okay.
have that.
All
Okay.
right, fair enough.
So since we just read that off, let's do the vote. I would motion to approve application site plan review SP-10-2023 with the conditions that were just listed.
Second.
Any other discussion? Was there anyone else, I always forget, that wanted to speak on these items for or against?
Gecko.
All right.
Excuse me. Hang on.
Yeah.
Did you have the power pole on that list?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry. Okay. Thank you.
Yep. All right, Jacob, when you're ready.
Okay. Mr. Martin?
Aye.
Mr. DeArmond?
Aye.
Ms. Schroeder?
Aye.
Mayor Miron?
Aye. Okay. And then on Raising Cane's,
Did we want to do the conditional use?
we had the conditions. I will motion to approve application for site plan review SP-11-2023 filed by Olio Development for a new Raising Cane's drive-through restaurant on what's currently Lot 5 of the Findlay Village Mall, subject to the following conditions. Work with the city and regional planning to maximize the front property setback. Work to adjust the landscaping as appropriate. Work with Findlay Police Department to have a traffic plan for grand opening. Receive a copy of the parking plan to the north. And then I guess did we need to have it on get-go that, again, these are conditional upon the variances being received?
Yeah, I would add that.
Is there something like work with the mall on that landscape aisle? Is that? I don't know.
I think that's kind of on the city.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right.
All right, I made a motion.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion
Did
and
you
a
have
second.
the traffic control plan?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Any other discussion? Jacob, whenever you're ready.
Okay.
Thank goodness for recordings.
Yes. Mr. DeArmond?
Aye.
Ms. Schroeder?
Aye.
Mayor Miron?
Aye.
Mr. Martin?
Aye.
Do you want me to amend the approval for get-go to add the condition of the appropriate variances being received? Oh, you had it listed. Okay.
And then we probably should move on to granting the conditional use for the drive-throughs,
Okay.
for both
Okay.
the drive-throughs.
All right. Do we have a, 1 second, let me get organized here. Do we have conditional use application numbers for either of those?
I did not include those.
Okay, so it would be CU 07-2023
I believe so.
for get-go.
And then 8 for.
Okay. So I would motion that we approve CU-07-2023 conditional use permit for Get-Go Get-Go Operating LLC / Giant Eagle for a drive-through at the location on Lot 5 of the Findlay Village Mall. Discussion. Staff comments, anything beyond what has already been discussed that would be required for the drive-through?
No. I mean, I honestly don't even think drive-through should be a conditional use in C2. I mean, it should just be permitted. So I almost view this as a quirk in the code. So I have no issues with drive-throughs at these locations.
In C2.
In C2, yes.
Any
Okay.
discussion?
Nope. Move to approve.
All right, we have a motion
Second.
and a second. All right, so all in favor, Jacob, whenever you're ready.
Ms. Schroeder?
Aye.
Mayor Miron?
Aye.
Mr. Martin?
Aye.
Mr. DeArmond?
Aye.
All right, so that was CU 07-2023. Moving on to CU 08-2023 for a conditional use for a drive-through on the Raising Cane's property. currently Lot 5 of the Findlay Village Mall. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I will motion to approve CU-08-2023.
Second.
Motion and a second. Jacob, whenever you're ready.
Mayor Maron,
Aye.
Mr. Martin,
Aye.
Mr. Dearmont,
Aye.
and Ms. Schroeder.
Aye.
Okay. So let's go on back to item number 2. Application for final plat FP-01-2022 filed by Rocky 3 Investments LLC for a replat of Lot 5 of the Findlay Village Mall subdivision for 2 lots. CPC staff comments.
I'm just going to go ahead and skip the general info. The site is currently parking lot for RMP Home and Harvest of Findlay. Rocky 3 Investments are proposing a replat of Lot 5 of the Findlay Village Mall subdivision. The Findlay Village Mall subdivision was replatted in 2021 to create 5 lots. This replat would create 2 outlots in Lot 5 adjacent to Tiffin Avenue. On their plat, they've listed them as lease parcel 1, which would be located on the east side abutting Croy Drive. And it would be 1.511 acres in size. And then lease parcel 2 would be directly west of lease parcel 1 and measure 1.009 acres in size. The applicant will need to provide a copy of the reciprocal easement agreement to maintain access between the lots using existing traffic patterns on the site. CPC staff recommends approval of the application for final plat FP-01-2023 filed by, at the time it was Get Go and Olio, but it's actually Rocky 3. So FP-01-2023 filed by Rocky 3 Investments LLC for a replat of Lot 5 of the Findlay Village Mall subdivision for 2 outlots. With the following condition, provide a copy of the reciprocal easement agreement.
Jake, when you said, did you just say the reciprocal agreement between these 2 lots? Because I think they probably also need it with the mall.
With all the
lots, okay.
Yeah.
All right, engineering. Oh, sorry.
No comment.
He snuck out. Sorry. I was really focused on everything. Fire prevention.
No comment.
Lovely. All right. So the recommendation from staff recommends approval of application for final plat FP-01-2023 filed by Rocky 3 Investments of Lot 5 of the Findlay Village Mall subdivision for 2 outlots subject to the following condition. Provide a copy of reciprocal easement agreements for, I'm going to just add the detail of, with surrounding properties. Discussion. Anything further that needs to be added?
The parking lot plan?
So we want to add the condition of the parking lot
Because it's their parking lot,
master
right?
plan. Yes.
It's their,
for
I
Rocky
mean,
3.
this is the one that really is the most important. They're the ones gonna have to provide it.
Okay. Any other discussion? Is there anyone else that wanted to speak for or against the side? Come forward. Yep.
Just real quick, Lee Mace, Giant Eagle again. There is an existing reciprocal easement agreement in place. I maybe we'll just have to look to make sure it covers these changes to it. And I did attach it to the end of that presentation. So
Okay.
it's already recorded, so it's a public record. But I
Okay.
can send it separately.
That was part of the replat. That wasn't a condition for their approval at the time, was to have a reciprocal agreement for the entirety of the mall. So I would imagine we could just amend that to include these new.
Okay. Perfect. All right. With that, I will motion to approve final plat FP-01-2023 filed by Rocky 3 of lot for the replat of Lot 5 of the Findlay Village Mall subdivision for 2 outlots with the following conditions. To ensure we have a copy of the reciprocal easement agreements for impacted properties, as well as then the parking layout for the northern lot.
Second.
Any other discussion? Hearing none. Jacob, whenever you're ready.
Mr. Martin,
Aye.
Mr. Dearmont,
Aye.
Ms. Schroeder.
Aye.
And Mayor Murin.
Aye. All right. Moving on to the final item. Application for zoning amendment ZA-02-2023, a request to repeal the existing City of Findlay zoning code and replace it with an updated version. Matt?
Would it be possible
Thank
to
you.
do a
Thank you.
couple-minute break
Yes.
before we
Sure.
dive into this meaty subject?
I suppose so. We will recess for
We-
five.
yeah, we have
Oh, yeah,
another
go ahead.
comment.
Off the record, I just wanted to thank you, and Madam Mayor, I wanted to tell you, your staff doesn't always tell us what we want to hear, but they're such a pleasure to work with. So.
They're a great
good.
group. We're going to put that on the record. That's a compliment. That's a compliment. Yes, we will. Thank you guys.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your understanding.
Sure.
All right, we will take a 5-minute break.
Awesome. Thank you.
What is it, 11:15? All right. Yeah, that's why I wanted to make sure. Yeah. Yeah. Matt, we had to clarify that was C2, not C1. That about the drive-through.
Did I say C1?
No, but I just wanted to make it sure it was clear.
Reiterating.
Yeah, yeah. That could be construed as.
Well, how do we do, Grant? Yeah. Just turn it down.
I thought her argument should have been simply, I bought a house to be a, so I bought a house in a residential neighborhood to be in a residential neighborhood.
Let me go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Well, I guess you can always, that's a recommendation, you can do, right? That's why we pay the big money.
Did we remove drive-throughs from conditional use in C2 or the new zoning code? We should. I think we should, yeah. You know what, the thing on the get-go,
How are you, Grant?
well, yourself,
Doing
I
well.
have a pickup, and I will find a sledgehammer, because this I want to see.
Shanice, you're probably good if you want to bounce.
Love it.
Sounds good. Thank you.
You didn't want to talk about the new agricultural zoning district? Nope. Wow. Have a good day. See you.
All right. Everything all right?
I'm gonna be in Findlay this morning. I thought maybe we could get together and chat. I don't know what that's supposed to mean.
Yeah.
We're recording, so I don't. Sergeant Schultz.
How long are we gonna go into zoning stuff? There's a lot there.
We'll have to read the whole.
section, word by word.
Yeah, right.
I think we're gonna go by over the
Yeah.
general, and then you guys can read the detail if desired.
Grant can answer all questions.
was thinking I should have brought my iPad.
Okay, so you guys are wanting to move the June 8th meeting? Okay. What date are you looking at moving it to? 15th? That should work.
Is it June 15th?
Yeah.
For
Push the meeting
city
back
planning?
1 week.
I'll be in Oregon. My daughter gets married that weekend.
Unacceptable.
But do it without me.
Yeah, we'll circulate it and see if that works for folks.
I'll be wine tasting in Willamette Valley.
Sounds very nice.
And then later that week we'll get the wedding.
Okay, we'll give Rob one more minute. He had to run upstairs to take care of something. Is this different than what's in the?
No.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, if everyone has it.
What is the
All right, we will get back.
what is the internet here?
There should be like a City of Findlay guest.
I find it ironic that the planned unit development is coming back.
All right, well, we will go
Mistakes
ahead
are
and.
made. Full circle sometimes.
Full circle.
Application for zoning amendment ZA-02-2023, a request to repeal the existing City of Findlay zoning code and replace it with an updated version. So the full red line version of the code is located on the zoning page. I don't believe we intend to go through every single red line today. However, the commission was given the summary of the proposed zoning changes. So again, I don't know if I'm fine not, again, reading this off. Hopefully you guys all did your homework and read this. I guess maybe we should just open it to questions. I don't know, Grant, if you have anything specific as Chair of Planning and Zoning you wanted to mention. Or Matt, if there was any specific things that, I would mention, the original proposal did also add in some reference to farm animals, a grandfathering process, kind of maximums on the number you could have based off of lot sizes, some different kind of health and safety recommendations on containment. Because of the volume of discussion that was brought up on those have been pulled out separately of this. And we're having some additional discussion on that. Some community members have come forward and brought some really good feedback. So we want to continue to vet that, but didn't want these changes to be held up through that process. So we would do the full repeal, replace with these. That is primarily because we also did kind of a reorganizing. Our old document was kind of piecemealed together and had gotten very cumbersome and kind of disorganized. So our attorney kind of just recommended that we do a full kind of rewrite. But then these are the specific changes. So that is where we are at in the process at this time.
Correct. So I guess first off, I'll open it up to questions, I think, like the mayor suggested. Just a note, the last time we repealed and replaced the zoning code was 2017. We did a lot of updates then, and we're looking, again, it's been 5 years, things change, and so we're looking always to evolve the ordinance to meet the needs of the city.
And one statement on the definition of a full rewrite. They didn't change the words. They actually, the lawyer's admin retyped the entire code into a Word document, because the previous Word document, you changed one thing here. It was like Fat Albert's gym. You hit the board here and something else pops up there. You couldn't physically work with the Word document. So they retyped the whole thing, and with that came what happens when you retype a 150-page document. Typos, things that were bold, or like formatting
errors and stuff. So as you read through it, if you find something, I mean,
Yeah.
say it. Because as we went through it, we kept finding little minor things, but the intent was to, in essence, copy the document in its entirety correctly and then make changes as is stated in the summary. But the whole code is, but the functional document is brand spanking new with the intent that only these things are the content changes.
Or would the board like me to go over some of the bigger changes? Or would you just like to start asking questions? It's your preference.
I mean, I have a million comments, but I don't know, without, this is gonna, I don't know, I just not.
Well,
It's not so much on what, I was okay with everything was added, just on just lots of other items, we had none, I was okay with the corrections. It was like, but maybe I should just send you an email, Matt, and here's my thoughts on some stuff, and
maybe easier if we just sit down some morning.
Okay, that's probably easier, yeah. Right.
Well, I guess I want to clarify, if they are feedback on the zoning that you want to have changed or incorporated, then we need to have the discussion in a public meeting
Yeah,
such
sure.
as this. If it's you just have kind of questions on things or other recommendations.
It's a little of both, but so if maybe Matt, we'll sit down and go through them, and then we'll sort it down to the top few, and then bring that up at a public meeting.
Yeah.
If there's some that have traction.
Yeah, so I think,
Okay.
What we wanted to do today is bring this forward. This starts the formal process. We had been having discussion within planning and zoning just to kind of vet and discuss the kind of proposals that the administration and regional planning had brought forward. So this is now kind of the start of the formal process for us to then do a kind of discussion, vetting, and then go forward with any legislation. So what we'll do then today is there will not be any formal action on this except for tabling, so that we can have further discussion if that's what you're looking for. But I would like the plan for the committee to be that at the next June's meeting, whenever date that may end up being, that we would work through it in detail and have any specific adjustments, because then the next phase would be that it would go to the planning and zoning committee and kind of the final public vetting for adoption.
Right. A couple bigger items, I guess. So I guess I was hoping to see something about abandoned homes. We've had some issues on Main Street. There's we had the one, I don't know, just abandoned homes. How can we address abandoned homes? I mean, is there some way that, after they're abandoned for so long that, we write letters to the owners, and at some point we do eminent domain and we sell the property and the money can go back to the owner? I'm not trying to take it, but just, I don't know. We have like right next to Speedway. Speedway owns that. It's been abandoned for 8 years, they said, I don't know if that's true, but that's what they say. It's so it's just empty houses. And can we address that? I don't know.
Well, I believe what you just described is a land bank. That is
Well-
functionally how they operate.
Well-
However, you don't really use eminent domain. So we do currently have a process if properties are not being upkept and following the zoning code. We do notify them. Obviously, if a property is foreclosed, we reach out to the banks to make sure that they're doing something with it. But right now, in my opinion, we don't really have a method if somebody is, mowing the grass and the sides aren't falling off of it, to address to someone owning a property that's vacant. So there's a difference really between a vacant and abandoned.
Well, okay, that's fair. Okay, so so vacant property, I guess, is, there's several of them around just on Main Street. Just.
I don't know. I mean, I was not prepared for that question.
Well, we don't.
But in general, if a house is being maintained, whether it's vacant or someone is living there, I've not really, in my career, I've not really encountered kind of discussion about properly maintained properties that are vacant. Long as the property is being maintained properly, whether it's vacant or occupied, I've never really seen codes address that.
Well, so our, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Then it goes into, sorry. Then it goes into the definition of properly maintained. What your version of properly maintained can be clearly different than someone else's. So I
We
think there's
seem-
some subjectivity there.
We seem to be focused on cutting the grass, but it goes way beyond cutting the grass, you know.
Sure. I mean, at the, and that kind of goes into a citywide maintenance code and whole lot of can of worms. But when I say properly maintained, long as so I'll say this: I would have to do more research. Really. But correct me if I'm wrong. If house has siding that's missing, the city does not have any codes that address that.
It's in a whole different section of the zoning code. It's in general offenses. In the general offenses, there's a dilapidated house section. And in order to define it as a dilapidated structure, it has to meet one of the 9 requirements. So that would be a whole different ordinance and section that would have to be updated with modern codes because that hasn't been really touched since like 1979.
So that's
so wording and everything else has changed.
It's in the municipal code.
municipal
It's not in
code.
the zoning
Yep.
code.
And that's where our grass and everything else is also junk vehicles.
And is that something that we want to, just,
Well, I think that may be a great discussion. I think that's separate of this discussion,
Okay.
given it's a whole separate part of the code.
okay.
And yeah. So I guess any initial thoughts on any significant concerns with any of the proposed changes? Obviously, I know you need to read through the detail and more, but is there anything that jumps out to you as, what's that?
I just have a couple of minor things.
Okay. Yeah, if you go ahead and bring them up.
One was about the accessory uses in residential, accessory structures used for storing or parking vehicles. The access to the building must be paved from property line to the structure. Is there a definition for what vehicles means? I mean, I assume you can still park your riding mower in something that's not paved, but what about your golf cart? What about your four-wheeler? I mean, where does vehicle stop and start here?
So that has always been enforced: a motorcycle, automobile, van, an actual street-ready registered vehicle.
So we're talking street-ready vehicle.
Yes, not a lawnmower,
Not
not
something
not an RV, yes, but not a
Four-wheeler.
four-wheeler. Those
There's a
kind.
way to get a little more specific in there about it, just so it's not, I don't know, taken advantage of in the future or misread or.
We should check the definition of vehicle. And so I presented the updates to the apartment association this week, actually. And they brought they had concerns with this about the cost that it would incur on the property owner.
Yeah.
Promised I would bring this up to the board. There are concerns now, especially with the cost of concrete, that
Paving anything.
to the house. So in that case, I said, if you added another bay to your garage, then yes, you would have to pay for that. So that was a concern, and I said that I would bring this. I have mixed feelings on it. At some point, I think, my goal has been to get rid of kind of all these random gravel areas, parking areas, things kind of long term. So Eric, do you have any thoughts on it?
No.
Eric has no thoughts on it.
And we don't make them pay if there's already existing pavement or existing something, and they're putting it further back. We don't make them pay for the whole section over again. It's just so if there was an existing driveway and it was already paved or concrete and it was old looking, we don't make them pay from the property line to that structure. We just make them make that addition into the structure. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think, from my standpoint, as long as we can clarify, that it's not, just to your shed, right? It's like if you're driving an RV or, storing a boat or something regularly, you should have a better pathway to that than just rolling it through a yard. Okay, other thoughts?
One thing I learned reading through this was that we do have architectural standards. And if you recall, a couple of months ago, we had an issue where we were told there was no architectural standards. And our architect had an issue with the building, it was that nursing home over by St. Mike's, on the other, Foxrun, yeah. And so I was like, oh, so we do have architectural standards.
Which I believe Matt did bring up at that meeting.
Yeah.
I misspoke.
Matt
corrected me very kindly.
So what we don't have in the code currently, and there's a placeholder, is residential architectural standards.
Okay. But I guess I don't know. It's some that I don't know. I wish I would have backed Dan. I guess at the time he was upset about how the flat roof and the flat front on the building, and I guess I don't know. Anyway. So.
I guess my only point to that was, appeal of structures is subjective in many ways. And, I think she did explain kind of what the overall aesthetic of the structure was going to be. It wasn't just going to be a cinder block, building.
But it's pretty clear about, like the length of the roof, just have a flat roof. At some point you have to have some different relief and the same in the front. And so I think it's pretty laid out. And I doubt if that building met that part of the code. And
No, you guys, that's part of your review.
Yeah.
So it did.
I feel like I want to hit, I don't know, I feel like I want to hit some main points and we'll go from there.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah.
So let's just start. So we're adding an agricultural district, minimum of 5 acres. And this is, there's not many properties, if any, that would probably meet this standard currently within the city. But we have come across situations where, let's say, Factory A wants to build on property. It's close to the city of Findlay, but it's not contiguous. And in between that factory and the city boundary is a farm field. And that farm field, the owners want to continue operating as a farm into the future. And so we put this in there to give those property owners the ability to get agricultural zoning to feel more secure that, yes, I can farm this field for the next 20 years. And I can continue kind of my farming activities well into the future. So that was the main thrust for the adding the agricultural district. Within the C1, we removed some of the more what I thought were more intense uses. And since we've, there's been a little bit of a focus on C1 lately in the past year, looking at that, it's like, I don't know if some of those uses are quite appropriate. Electric charging stations, we're seeing more of those. I will be actually, as I was looking at this the other day, I thought it was appropriate. Electric charging stations as a conditional use should be in C1. I think it should be added to C1 in office and downtown, but all within a conditional use. Because I think, if an office building wants to put in electrical charging stations, I don't see an issue with that, but we would review.
So this applies to like if you want to put in a single electric charging station on your property, or if you want to put in several? It applies to either case?
This would apply to, yes, public charging stations. There-
Okay, yeah.
Within your home, that's permitted, and that's just the normal use of your home. But those who want to provide public charging stations. So we added the I3 district, and this is predominantly for alternative energy and more specifically wind turbines. I've personally sat in meetings where companies get pretty bright-eyed and excited about putting their factory in Findlay and having the ability to put up a couple wind turbines to help power their factory. That's in line with their long-term goals. And so I think that's a kind of a gold star for Findlay when companies are looking to locate here. Currently, all the wind turbines are in Allen Township. But the factory I just mentioned with the farm field that has the A1, they want to be in the city of Findlay. But when they come into the city of Findlay, we didn't want them to lose the potential ability to have a wind turbine. Now, will that be reviewed very carefully? Yes. Does it impede with the airport flight areas? Does it encroach on residential, et cetera? You know, the location probably doesn't change. It's probably north of town, in the area that there's already some. But if it's in the city of Findlay, they could lose that ability. So the mayor and I we went over about 3 different types of scenarios. Is it a wind turbine overlay? Is it conditional use? Is it, and really, we landed on a new industrial district. And one of the reasons I feel strongly about that is property owners don't have a right to be rezoned to something else. So we have the most control. If someone requests I3, you know, we have every ability to say no. So that gives the city a good feeling of control on where these could occur. At the same time, when we do give something I3, the companies then feel that they have every right, which they do, to then construct the wind turbine. So we wanted to achieve city control, but then once we determine it's a good site, that the company isn't held to the whims of a council or the whims of someone, or it changes. You know, the site is appropriate and they can put up the wind turbine.
And to just kind of build on that, you know, you heard it here. You know, developers don't want to have to get variances. They want to know the certainty. They don't want to have a conditional use for something where suddenly you get someone who is anti something and they show up and say, no, we no longer are giving you that permit, right? They're making a significant investment. So making sure that it is both protecting the community, the property, the airport, you know, all those different aspects, while also providing a level of certainty to those properties is also key.
And additionally, this is not intended to permit a wind farm. One of the conditions is that wind turbine is supplying power to a specific building. And that was key too. We're not trying to open a whole can of worms with 50 new wind turbines, and we're not trying to circumvent kind of the wishes of what the county commissioners have said. We want the ability for businesses at an appropriate location that meets all the criteria to be able to put up a wind. So that's the purpose of the I3. It's important to note the agriculture, the I3, PUD, the sections that we're adding no properties in the city of Findlay will have those designations upon approval of this. There were some, so anyone wanting that designation will come before this board, Planning and Zoning Committee, and City Council for a zoning change. Traditional PUD, moving on to, were there any questions about that? If not, I'll move on to the next one. We're getting rid of our PRD and PMUD, planned residential development, planned mixed-use development. I looked at those two. They're kind of broken ordinances. They were adopted in, I believe, 2011, and no one has even tried to use them. The traditional PUD, most townships, a lot of townships in our county have them. Almost every city has what consider the traditional PUD. In fact, when companies come here and they're like, well, could this be a PUD? Like, we don't have one. And they're somewhat, really. A PUD is essentially a negotiated zoning classification for that property. So I own 100 acres. I want to build office, residential, and I want to office and residential and 100 acres, but I want to do some unique things. I want to, maybe the office has smaller setbacks, but I'm mitigating it because I'm moving this back. I want higher density on the residential, but I'm leaving a 10-acre park, So what it allows for is flexibility that you don't find in the rigidness of traditional zoning. So I view this as a tool in the toolbox of the city of Findlay, that when someone wants to do something unique, that we can consider it.
Matt,
Yes.
correct me if I'm wrong. I didn't look at this specific one recently. What is the minimum acreage requirement that we have for the PUD?
It's 5 acres. The Planning Commission has the ability to waive that requirement.
Okay, you said 5 acres.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought.
To the question, in my career, I've seen PUDs used as a way to get like 20 variants at once. I don't like that. My classic example, in Arby's in Fishers, Indiana, did their project under a PUD. 1 acre, that's not planned development. They just couldn't fit their project on the site, and they went that route. Anyways.
Look at a PUD for Gitco and Canes combined. Was that a base?
I wouldn't consider Gitco. To me, they're not doing anything unique.
Plus, we don't currently have that as an option in our zoning.
Yeah, I would not consider. No, I would not consider that for PUD.
Because it's not unique or it's too small.
They're just
Yes.
what can be achieved. I think. Now the entire mall site, if someone came in and said, hey, we want to redevelop, and we want to do this, we want, because I would consider the whole mall site. Or I could consider something smaller, a couple acres. If they're doing something unique and they have kind of why.
I know we had some PUDs, and I don't know if they were rezoned or if they're still existing.
We had PUDs. They were removed as part of the of updates.
So do you have an example of like what we had as a PUD? Like, was Birchhaven put together as a PUD?
Birchhaven was a PUD.
Yeah. So that kind of use where you've got the nursing home site plus the condos and
Yeah.
all that.
So I don't think it'll be used,
And offices.
a ton, but it's will be beneficial for generally larger developments or infill developments, where uniqueness.
So I know a couple folks have meetings at 11:30. So to accommodate that, was there anything else specific you want to discuss now?
Just sign code is probably the other We are removing pylon signs as permitted signage, which this board has been almost moving in that direction for the last 2, 3, 4 years.
Will those still be allowed out near the highway or?
Yes.
Okay,
We're leaving the highway pylon sign regulations in place.
okay.
Billboards, we're increasing the radius from 500 feet to 2,500 feet, the distance between, and that effectively eliminates the ability to put new billboards up within the city of Findlay. There is 1 or 2 parcels where they could, one could, but for the most part, it's removing that ability. I feel like we have enough billboards in the city, and more will not. And then,
So hypothetically,
Yes.
if there was a location that doesn't meet that criteria because of the eligibility of the radius, that someone came to us and said, this is a great location for a billboard, and would there be able to be a variance by this group to make that exception if it made sense?
that would go to the Board of Zoning.
Okay, so that could potentially happen.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Most anything can happen with a variant. Some cases. And then kind of clarified and somewhat restricted future electronic message boards, limiting them to 25% of the sign as constructed. A lot of the same regulations we have, but you can't, and we can address this in the future. Technology may change, but I don't think we're ready for or necessarily desire full electronic message boards. Jeds had tried it. They're very hard to regulate because with my app, I could change the sign to flicker. I could make it do things. Along with the pylon signs, we've added a statement that essentially 10 years. So you can change Menards to Kmart. After 10 years, any change to the sign, be it the occupant, the faceplate of it, after 10 years from the passage of this ordinance, that then is considered a significant alteration to the sign, and it must be brought into conformance with the code. It's kind of a little newer way of kind of sunsetting. Now, if Menards stays Menards for the next 100 years, they're essentially in good shape, but if they have to do significant changes to the sign or change the faceplate, it is then has to be brought into. And those are the big points. And then lots of smaller points. But I guess I encourage the board members, we'll, as the mayor said, we'll go over it a little finer tooth comb in June.
Yes.
Potentially take a vote in June, or
Potentially.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll see where the discussion leads. So with this, do we need to table it, or are we able just to take no action and it can remain on the agenda?
I think both. I'd say table it.
Okay. I will motion to table ZA-02-2023, a request to repeal the existing City of Findlay zoning code and replace it with an updated version.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Jacob, whenever you're ready.
Mayor Mirren,
Aye.
Mr. Martin,
Aye.
Mr. DeArmond,
Aye.
and Ms. Schroeder.
Aye.
Seeing no other items on our agenda, the meeting, May 11th, City Planning Commission meeting is adjourned.
So you guys want to move the meeting next month to June? Okay. So.